Time is 6 minutes to 5. Now, could farmed salmon be a threat to wild salmon because they're ugly? New research reveals that farmed male salmon have smaller jaw hooks, or kypes, than wild salmon. Now, this makes them less attractive to females in the farm. Question is, how does this disadvantage in the looks department threaten their better-looking wild cousins? Well, the person who knows is Bangor University PhD student William Perry, who's behind the research. Hello to you, William.
Hello.
Hello, right. But before we talk about the threat to wild salmon, explain to us why they're ugly, why they're different from wild salmon.
Okay, so you might not have seen the hook jaws on your salmon. If you've bought tinned salmon in the past, you wouldn't have seen these horrible pictures. But the male fish have this extension of the lower jaw, and the female salmon find this particularly sexually attractive. So those males with the larger hook jaws are more attractive to the females.
Is it a bit like it's a bit like antlers on a stag? Yeah,
absolutely.
That kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely that. So the males use these lower hook jaws to fight each other in the breeding season, but also to attract the females as well.
Okay.
So you want a bigger kype, a bigger lower hook on your jaw if you want to attract the females.
Right.
Yeah.
And do we know why they're smaller on farmed salmon?
Yes. So through successive breeding for about 12 generations now in aquaculture, we've artificially bred these salmon for bigger body size, so we get more fillets out of them and that sort of stuff. But what we haven't done is we haven't allowed the natural process of mate choice. And so because the females...
So natural selection, in other words?
Absolutely,
they're not fighting each other?
That's it. Sexual selection, natural selection. The males with the bigger kypes aren't doing better because we're not choosing them. And so because of that, there's no selection there, and so we've seen this reduction.
So the ones who wouldn't have survived or wouldn't have been able to mate in the wild have been allowed to?
That's it. The ugly ones are getting through.
The ugly ones get...
That's it.
Doesn't sound that bad being a salmon, in all honesty,
true.
I've got to
Well,
say.
someone said to me today, you're outing all the ugly salmon, and I thought, oh God, that's dreadful, isn't it? You know.
So what's this got to do with wild salmon then? Because they've still got big jaw hooks and they're still knocking lumps out of each other.
Yes, that's it. So I mean, the problem is that hundreds of thousands of these salmon in Norway and Scotland particularly escaping every year. We're getting better at stopping them from escaping from the farm pens, but they're being released into the wild. And so the problem is when they breed with wild fish, the hybrids between the farmed and wild fish have an intermediate hook length, and so we're worried that they might not be as reproductively successful. And with all the strains that these fish are under already, with overfishing, pollution, we're worried that this might be another chip at them and perhaps population failure.
When you say population failure, you mean no more wild salmon?
Yes, that's it. Yeah, and I mean a lot of our fish comes from farms now. Anyway, you know we've been doing it since the 1970s. But yeah, the wild salmon would be a really sad thing to lose, I think.
So, I mean, how many salmon escape then? How do they get into the population? It would have to be a lot, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, in 2006 in Norway alone, 900,000 escaped from Norwegian farms.
900,000?
Yeah, that's it. So close to 1 million, you know. So we're talking about really big numbers
Are
here.
the farms near the sea or near rivers then?
That's it, yeah. So the farms are in fjords, they're in lochs in Scotland, and these are great places for the farms because it gets rid of all the detritus that the cage leaves behind, you know, natural services. But the problem is then they are in the natural environment, and if that cage rips open in a storm or something, they can all escape.
Don't the wild girl salmons take one look at them and go, no, I'm sorry, your jaw hooks are too small?
They can, and I mean that's probably what's happening. So there is some good news, but we know that farm salmon are able to breed with the wild salmon. So some of those ugly ones are getting through, and we're worried about their kids, essentially.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Okay, my pleasure.
That's William Perry, Bangor University PhD student and salmon expert.
If you are an ugly salmon, plenty more fish in the sea, of course. I just one piece of news.